Okay, I'm Chris Avina with American Outdoor News, and today we're speaking to Chris Stone from National Association of Gun Rights. Fantastic advocacy group. Chris, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. Appreciate being on the podcast.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on with the Second Amendment, a lot of new bills being presented, and the fight is on.
Yeah, the fight is on, and thankfully we've seen a great response from law-abiding Second Amendment activists here in the country. People are realizing the threat that our gun rights are under right now, and so people are joining the fight. We've seen a lot of first-time, a lot of new gun owners join our organization and like-minded organizations as well, and people are realizing that there is a very real active threat in Washington, D.C. and state legislatures of legislators actively trying to take your gun rights away. So we're thrilled to obviously work on this issue to not only defend the Second Amendment for law-abiding Americans to restore that right, to restore the gun rights that have been taken from us, and bring people into that fight and help them understand why this is such a critical issue for Americans to be involved with.
Well, I definitely have to agree with that, but the threat is not just legislatively. We're seeing the threats of, naturally the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
the flood coming across the border, the riots. I mean, we're looking at 9 months of riots in Portland alone.
And interestingly enough, that's one of the things we've seen that have brought new gun owners into the community, looking and seeing their cities and their towns being overtaken by what the left wants to call protesters, but are really violent rioters. And they realize that these people are marching in their neighborhoods, with weapons and Molotov cocktails, and they're standing there realizing the cops can't make it to them. So they're their own self-defense. And then they look and they realize they don't own a firearm, and that they want a firearm for self-defense, lawful self-defense, of course. And so there is a lot of things going on that are bringing people into the fold. And so, that's why as an organization and also us just working with people who've been longtime firearms owners, longtime activists, to help bring more people into this fight, to realize why it is so important to defend the Second Amendment here in the United States. Because if we just ignore it, if we think, oh, they're not going to take our gun rights away, it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. They pass a bill here, they pass a bill there, and then one day you wake up and you realize, you have to pay $2,000 to own a gun and register it, and you can't own certain types of guns, and there's different ordinances everywhere, and the threshold to become a firearms owner is just non-existent. You can't do it. So that's why we take advocacy so seriously, to make sure people understand what's going on.
Well, let's take a step back and tell me a little bit about National Association for Gun Rights. What is your mantra? Why do you exist?
Absolutely. So the National Association for Gun Rights, we are a 501c4 nonprofit, and we consider ourselves no compromise when it comes to the Second Amendment. Our purpose as an organization is both to defend the Second Amendment, but also restore the rights that have been lost. So our headquarters is here in the state of Colorado, where obviously there's a lot of gun control that's been passed. So we have a state chapter here, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, that works very hard. But we also have an office in Washington, D.C. We have lobbyists who work on Capitol Hill. I used to live in Washington, D.C. myself as a firearms lobbyist. And we have a very large field team that works in state legislatures all across the country, mostly working on the passage of constitutional carry, but also getting people involved to understand what's going on. And fundamentally, our power comes from our 4.5 million members. Grassroots activists are the folks that help lobby legislators to tell them either, hey, don't vote for this gun control bill, we're watching what you're doing, or the reverse, hey, there's a great bill here that will restore our rights. I want you to vote for this. I'm a voter. I live in your district. I know who you are. And so that's what we're about as an organization, is not compromising, not taking half measures, showing and really reminding people that, the left wants to say, oh, there's no gun control in the United States, which is obviously patently false. I mean, you can go back nearly 100 years. The National Firearms Act of 1934, the Gun Control Act of 1968, the Hughes Amendment in 1984, the Brady Law in 1993, the assault weapons ban, which obviously sunset in 2004, the NICS Expansion Act in 2007. I mean, they've been passing so much gun control over the last 100 years. You know, as an organization, we were looking around and realizing we have to stop this. And so that's what we do, and we're proud to do that work. We've been very successful at the state level, especially constitutional carry is a big issue for us at the state level. We helped pass constitutional carry in Montana and Utah this year, as well as in Iowa. And then at the federal level, it's unfortunately mostly playing defense. There's not a whole lot to do to pass pro-gun bills. Obviously, we do work with pro-gun legislators to introduce pro-gun legislation and try and move the ball forward as much as we can. But it's mostly playing defense. I mean, that's exactly what we did in 2013 during the Toomey Mansion fight. Some people might realize that during President Obama's second term, after the tragedy at Sandy Hook, they wanted to pass a ton of gun control. And it was our members who were pouring in phone calls and petitions and emails, personal visits to Capitol Hill, telling their legislators, you can't vote for this. This is the destruction of our gun rights. So that's really kind of, I know that was a long explanation, but that's really what we're about as an organization.
Well, you know, since the beginning of the year, I know as of August, there were 5 million new first-time gun owners. And that's a tremendous amount of people.
Absolutely.
Now, they obviously see the urgency because of our environment. What's going on? Can they protect their family? Will they be able to protect their family if somebody tries to take away their gun rights? Now, in the beginning of the year, they presented HR 127, which would have been such sweeping legislation covering national registry, psychological evaluations, no knock warrants, no warrants, where ATF can walk into your house without a warrant, without probable cause, because of the red flag laws. They could come in and seize your weapons, no questions asked, which basically would have forfeited your Fourth Amendment right.
Absolutely. And you know, there's a lot there to unpack. A lot of what we've done at the state and federal level is resisting what we call red flag gun confiscation, exactly what you're alluding to, this,
yes,
essentially this forfeiting of your Fourth Amendment rights. And we see how dangerous and destructive these bills are. And for anyone listening who may not understand, red flag gun confiscation laws at the state level basically say anyone who has basically somewhat of a relationship with you, maybe it's a former spouse, a roommate, a parent, a sibling, can basically go to the court without you knowing, file a petition without any evidence and say, hey, you know, John Doe over here, he's actually a crazy person. He owns guns and I don't like him. You should go take those guns. Well, you can imagine in a state, especially a more liberal state that doesn't respect gun rights very much, that judge can then turn around, grant that petition, and the cops literally show up at your door without you knowing. You've never been notified. You got no petition. There's no warrant. And they say, hey, we're here to take your guns. And by the way, if you want to get them back, you have to pay thousands of dollars. You have to hire an attorney, and you have to prove your innocence. I mean, it's flipping that on its head, right? In America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And red flag laws flip those on its head. And just fundamentally, they're dangerous because it puts law enforcement in such a dangerous position where they're showing up. I mean, we saw that happen in Maryland, where there was a red flag order issued against a man. He had no idea. The police showed up in January. You know, it's dark. It was like, I think it was 4 or 5 in the morning. He hears pounding on his door. So what does he do? You know, he grabs a firearm. There's confusion. He got shot. He lost his life. So bills like HR 127, I mean, it's the typical leftist agenda. They take every single anti-gun measure they can think of and they pour it into one bill. And then from there, they use that bill as basically a prototype to do other smaller pieces of legislation. And then they kind of pass those. So again, it's that process of death by 1,000 cuts. And so a lot of what we do here is monitoring that legislation. Our full-time staff in Washington, D.C. work on obviously reading the bills, talking to pro-gun members of Congress, and then distilling that information in an understandable manner, and then letting our members know, saying, hey, here's a bill that was introduced, here's what it does, this is why we need you to call your member of Congress or send this petition in. And we really do send those petitions. You know, I know a lot of people think, oh, what do you do when you're emailing me? Well, we literally 20 feet away from me right now, we have a team of about 10 people sorting through tens of thousands of petitions, organizing them, because we're going to mail them off. And we do deliver those, and they work. When I've walked into many legislators' offices and state legislatures and dropped a stack of 5,000 petitions off, and you should see their eyes light up when you say, hey, these people live in your district, we told them what you're supporting, you may want to know about it, because they're also registered voters. And so it's a very powerful tool to help the grassroots get involved in lobbying against anti-gun bills.
They're thinking about their own best interest. They're not thinking about yours. And now, you know, getting on to the legislation in front of us, HR 8, National Gun Registry. How do we feel about a National Gun Registry?
Yep. Yeah. Well, of course, they always just want to call it, you know, background checks. You know, it's here to keep you safe. Well, it is a gun registry, because the reality is national, federalized, universal background checks don't work unless there's a registry in place. Mm-hmm. And so they want to pass this bill to essentially take all firearms transactions, basically all firearms transactions, and say, you can't exercise your Second Amendment right. You can't sell property without the government knowing, without us recording on a form, you know, 4473, without paying a fee to the government. You can't exercise your right to keep and bear arms. Well, of course, you know, we read the Second Amendment, it says shall not be infringed. And what is this other than a massive infringement? I mean, literally under HR 8, if it's passed into law, and it did pass out of the United States House of Representatives. It's currently awaiting a vote in the United States Senate. They've held some hearings on it. It's basically saying, you know, your neighbor that you've known for 20 years, the person that you go to church with, or that's, you know, you go golfing with, that you know personally, if you sell a firearm to them or you buy a firearm from them and the federal government doesn't know about it and it's not recorded, you now are a criminal. You have violated the law. And this is an egregious violation of our right to keep and bear arms. And the sad part is, when we look at these horrific things like mass shootings that happen, all of these individuals have passed background checks. They don't work. They're fundamentally, the system is fundamentally flawed. And all it does is hamper law-abiding citizens' ability to defend themselves. And so, you know, this is just one angle of attack that they're going to be using to restrict your ability to defend yourself.
Yes. Now, I know they were floating psychological background checks, evaluations to go along with the background checks, which I think that was what, 1446, HR 1446, the expanded background checks.
Yeah, so HR 1446 is basically gives the federal government the ability to just arbitrarily delay background checks. So if you go in to purchase a firearm, the government can basically just say, yeah, well, we're going to delay this. And, you know, from our perspective, a right delayed is a right denied. I mean, if you think about it, if you know that, like we were talking about earlier, there's a protest or a riot in your town and you need to protect yourself, and you go to the gun store, you're a law-abiding citizen. Maybe you're a single mom who's afraid for her kids, and you go to the store and they say, nah, we'll process this background check. I don't know, maybe 4 days, 5 days, 6 days from now, who knows? It'll be fine. Well, it's not fine for you when you need the protection immediately.
Sure.
And as far as psychological background checks, I mean, you know, think about this. Do you want the government deciding what the standards are for what makes you psychologically impaired? I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's so subjective.
Yeah, it's completely subjective. You're talking about government bureaucrats without the court of law being involved, deciding whether or not you can own a firearm. Now, obviously, we understand if there's a person who's legitimately criminally insane and has been proven guilty in the court of law, okay, that's a different issue. But some bureaucrat at an agency in the DC swamp saying, well, you posted something on Facebook about supporting a certain politician. You're crazy. You can't own a gun. That's what we're talking about when they want to sponsor this legislation. It's not about stopping actual criminally insane people. It's about persecution of essentially conservatives and people who consider themselves pro.
When you look at the shooting in Atlanta, there's nothing in HR 8 or 1446 that would have detected that this kid was going to go out and shoot people. He had no psychological history. He had no criminal history, no drug arrests, the kid was clean. The kid was squeaky clean. Anything that they put through wouldn't have detected that this kid was going to go out and shoot somebody.
Absolutely. And the reality, the flip side of that is when we look at states which have passed laws like constitutional carry, which say if you're a law-abiding citizen and you can legally possess a firearm, you should be able to carry that firearm openly or concealed without having to pay a tax to the government. The reality is, and of course this is always buried in the national media, there are stories all the time of normal citizens carrying firearms and defending themselves, stopping mass shootings. But again, it never gets any media traction because the mass shooting doesn't occur. There's a crazy person that shows up somewhere with a knife, a gun, a bomb, or a car, and then there's a law-abiding citizen there who stops them, and half the time they don't even have to discharge their weapon, and it stops crime. So you're exactly right. These laws, all they do is hamper the ability for normal individuals to protect themselves. And crazy deranged terrorists, they'll get their weapons other ways. I mean, the Department of Justice did a study where they interviewed people who were in prison who had committed crimes with weapons. They said, how'd you get your guns? How'd you get your weapon? They're like, oh, we bought it illegally. It was a straw purchase. We stole it. So, they're admitting that all the laws you want to pass, they're not going to stop us. The reality is some of these really sick, deranged people who commit mass shootings, they've planned these things 6-12 months in advance. So, a 5-day waiting period, mandatory registration, a $200 fee, that isn't stopping them. That almost just is unfortunately encouraging them. It kind of almost eggs them on. But like we've been saying, the person who needs a gun now to defend themselves, the person who, the single mom or the blue collar worker who doesn't have infinite PTO or tons of time off to pay a $500 or $1,000 registration fee, it hurts that person.
Well, that floats right into the part of the legislation that they're asking for insurance. Well, they're making it, or they would like to make it financially unfeasible for the average American to pay insurance on 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 guns, however many you own. The Second Amendment doesn't say you can't own X amount of guns. It just says you could own guns. By mandating that we have to have insurance on each one of those guns, it makes it financially impossible for a good portion of the American public to own a gun. Not to mention that mandating insurance is backdoor registration.
Absolutely.
If you have insurance, well, they must have a gun. That's not rocket science. It's common sense.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And the sad irony is, leftists and people who are generally anti-gun, they love to go on the news and talk about how they're for the working class, how they're for the common American. Yet exactly what you're saying, they want to pass a bill that says, oh yeah, we don't really care what the Second Amendment says. You need to pay this insurance, which like you said is backdoor firearms registration. And it's essentially a tax. It's a tax on the normal individual. Sure, the people who live in gated communities who make $400,000 or $500,000 a year, paying a $500 or $1,000 tax may not be a big deal. But the average American, who might have children, who is saving up for to fix their car or go on vacation, the threshold to buy a quality firearm, you're already talking, for a quality handgun, maybe $500 or $600 at a minimum. Ammo prices are, of course, sky high right now. And if the state is saying, oh yeah, you have to insure it on top of that, I mean, that's ridiculous. You're basically just pricing out the normal folks who don't get to live in gated communities, who don't have private security guards. We're the people we are our own security. And it's a complete slap in the face to the overwhelming majority of people who live in this country.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break here and acknowledge some of our sponsors for our podcast. Underwood Ammo, always a standard of excellence. Amazing, amazing company, great ammo. If you're not familiar with them, take a look at them. I don't shoot anything else. Phone Scope, another great company, always innovative, always coming up with great ideas for the outdoors. Check out Phone Scope and Hunt of a Lifetime. We're gonna see a brief commercial from them.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Okay, and we're back. Well, with all this legislation that the Democrats are trying to push forth, and hate to get Democrat, Republican, his side, our side. The simple fact is, we've been under attack for a long time about owning firearms, and it's our right. Our forefathers saw this coming long in advance. How they did it, I don't know, but I'm thankful for them. They perceive us as weak. The NRA claimed bankruptcy and moved from New York to Texas. They see that as a weakness. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not the NRA that is the strength of the Second Amendment. It's the NRA's base. It's you and me. It's your organizations like yours and others that are our voice. And the left is always saying, there's a shooting, they come out right away, like Boulder the other day. They use it as a political talking point. Second Amendment is not a political talking point.
Absolutely. I mean, it isn't a talking point, but that's what they want to do, right? And they do it with all our rights, right? We can see how they want to restrict free speech right now. We can see how they want to restrict our right to privacy, especially with red flag laws, our right to be innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. But kind of what you were saying, the real power is in the individual. And when we are working together as gun owners for a common cause, we see the strength that it produces. I mean, great examples just from this year here in 2021, passing constitutional carry in Utah and Montana. And in Montana, for a long time, constitutional carry was passing through the state legislature, but the governor, who was a Democrat, was vetoing it. Well, leading up into the elections back in 2020, we have a political action committee. Our political action committee was able to get involved and support someone who is running for governor, who said they would support the Second Amendment and pro-gun laws. We got our members involved in that, said, vote for this individual. They are promising, they had a record that they will support your right to keep and bear arms. And what happened? That individual got elected. Our members got engaged with the legislative season. And within literally just a couple of weeks of their state legislature coming together, they passed constitutional carry because those members of the legislature were getting nonstop phone calls, emails, visits, petitions, and then our staff being on the ground there to help deliver and organize that. And they passed it. We did the same thing in Utah. And so, for anyone watching who might be a new gun owner, who might have just bought a firearm in the last year, obviously we want to encourage everyone to get basic training on their firearm, to learn how to operate safely, how to carry it safely, how to clean it, obey the basic 4 rules of gun safety. and then also get involved and understand the assault that is happening on your gun rights. But to not just be down and out, but to look at how the victories we've won, the way we've advanced pro-gun legislation, and the way that we together can stop gun control. You know, it is rough right now with Joe Biden being in the White House and anti-gun Democrats controlling the United States House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. But there are legislative tools that allow us to help us block legislation. And we've done this before. Like I said earlier in this interview, we did it in 2013. We've done it with stopping it back. I think it was in 2019. I might be wrong on that. There was an individual who was nominated to be the director of the ATF, who is outspoken about firearms. I mean, he was a complete gun controller. We got our members involved immediately, and with their petitions, with their emails, we actually had pro-gun members of the Senate Judiciary Committee reading our talking points and caught this guy completely flat-footed, had no idea it was coming, and they withdrew his nomination because they realized he was anti-gun. So grassroots activism really does work. I know it can be discouraging to look at the news. It can be discouraging to see maybe the state of politics in the United States of America, but we've won multiple times and we can do it again if we work together.
Well, here's something that you mentioned. It's very important. Yeah, the Democrats do have the House, they do have the Senate, they have the presidency, but a very important piece of the government is the filibuster.
Absolutely.
And they know if the filibuster is still intact, it's a dangerous piece of legislation that they won't be able to push through whatever they want. And they're trying to dismantle that.
Yep, and for us, it's a key issue that we on Capitol Hill work with legislators, reminding them that they have to defend the filibuster. You know, obviously, we don't want to get into the super wonkiness of all the rules of the Senate, but the Senate is a specific chamber. It was designed by our founding fathers. Excuse me. It was designed by our founding fathers to slow down legislation, to be the chamber of debate. It's that reminder that America is not a democracy. We're a republic. We're a representative government. It isn't mob rule, the 51% rules. But that's what leftists want to do. They want to turn the Senate into the House and just make everything simple majority. This is a democracy, mob rules, and we need to stop that because it hurts everyone's cause. The filibuster is an important tool that helps protect all of our rights, not just the Second Amendment.
Well, the very people that were elected to defend our Constitution and stand up for our rights, those are the ones that are trying to dismantle our Constitution and take away our rights. So every voice is important. Every action matters. And it's our responsibility as Americans to stand up and say, we didn't vote for you to do that. This is what we want. So we have to tell them what we want them to do. And that's our responsibility.
Absolutely. And that is the power, too, of making sure that gun owners link together what happens in the legislative season or during votes, and then what happens during election season, right? That's what politicians don't want you to know what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know what's happening in the state legislature. All they want you to know is when they run for office again, they put out a fancy commercial, they send you fancy stuff in the mail saying, you know, I care about you, please vote for me. And that's a lot of what we do is we remind people, hey, this is how this person voted while they were supposed to be representing you. And now they want your vote again. It's your duty, and here's the information. We're gonna supply you with the information of how this person acted. You know, we'll let you know if somebody truly is pro-gun. Are they sponsoring pro-gun bills? Are they defending the Second Amendment? And if there's a bunch of people out there who, you know, want to claim that they love your gun rights, yet they voted for numerous pieces of gun control, well, we're going to let you know that too, so you can hold them accountable.
Absolutely. And, you know, me personally, I see the Democrats as losing ground as far as gun legislation goes, because our voice is being heard. We are becoming more and more outspoken. And different podcasts, publications, organizations like yourself, we're making our voice heard. We're taking action. And they're not able to sustain the ground that they think they were able to get with the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Yeah, I mean, and just opportunities like this to be in a podcast like yours to reach this audience, it gets more people engaged, and that's that's one of the great things about technology. If gun owners come together and we utilize things like podcasts, email lists, websites, YouTube, obviously some of the big tech organizations aren't as friendly to our cause, but there are so many channels to get people involved. And that we can make it easy. That's part of what we want to do, is we want to make it as easy as possible for individuals to get involved. Like I said, when we send out an email, we say, click to sign your petition. It's really easy. We don't give away your complete identifying information, because obviously we're not going to turn that over to the government.
Of course not.
And we protect our lists. We don't sell them. We don't give them over to government agents or anything like that. But we use that. We generate petitions. We generate emails. We generate phone calls, and we blast it out. And we do see the effect, the positive effect, like you're talking about, where grassroots gun owners come together to lobby the government. It's really awesome to see. It's one of the most encouraging parts of my job, when we can just see the power of normal people coming together to promote the Second Amendment.
Well, lastly, I'd like to speak about national reciprocity. That's an important piece of legislation as well. Most background checks, as far as I know, are very similar in every state. So if I'm passing a background check in New York, why shouldn't I be able to come to Colorado and still possess my firearm to protect myself and my family?
Yeah, absolutely. The Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. So if you're a law-abiding citizen and you can own a firearm, you should be able to carry that firearm wherever you are in the United States of America. That is our opinion, flat out. Doesn't matter whether you live in California, Colorado, Florida, Montana, Kentucky. If you can own and carry a firearm, you should be able to possess it no matter what state you're in. And that's the reality of the reason why we have a Bill of Rights, is that it joins the states together. It says these are rights that are commonly held by all Americans. And one of the most successful ways we've seen that, and we're trying to help implement that from the state to state level, is passing laws like constitutional carry. Right now, there's 18 states, or I think actually almost 19, because Iowa just passed constitutional carry. We're getting to the precipice now where more and more states are even saying, you don't even need a permit. If you can legally buy a gun, you should be legally allowed to carry that firearm, right? And obviously, if you commit a crime with it, well, then you should be held responsible. And so it's this rolling effect that the more and more we pass this bill, it opens people's eyes. It opens up the pressure on legislators, on governors, to look and see that, hey, this state has done it. We can too. States that have passed constitutional carry actually have the lowest crime rates. You can look at the FBI crime stats. If you look at FBI crime statistics, states that have passed constitutional carry have the lowest violent crime rate in the country, because it's basically, it lets criminals know people here own and carry guns, and you're not going to know who they are. So if you go and try and commit a crime, you might need a quick end.
Yep. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on our podcast. Where can we find you?
Yeah, well, first of all, appreciate being on here. It's been a real pleasure. There should be a banner up here behind me. Anyone wanting to know more about our organization can visit nationalgunrights.org. We also have a YouTube channel. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Parler. We have a phone number that should be published on our website. You can call us with any questions you might have. We have people down there ready to answer any questions you might have about legislation or more specific work our organization is doing at the state level. So we would love people to join with us and get involved in the fight. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here on the podcast.
Well, thanks again. And, if you're listening, subscribe to the podcast. You'll be, it'll be sent to your email automatically when we come out with new podcasts as well. Thanks again, and see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.